Just listen.
Hello and welcome to Conversations with Dr. Greer. This is Dr. Stephen Greer of SiriusDisclosure.com, and I'd like to thank the folks at the World Puja Network for hosting us here every 2 weeks to bring you an update on our projects and activities and all the information that we're gathering on disclosure, UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligence, and new energy. And as many of you know, we have a really historic film coming out on April 22nd, Earth Day, is the premiere in Los Angeles of Sirius, like the star system, Sirius. And to find out more about that, you can go to SiriusDisclosure.com. That's Sirius Disclosure.com. And what you'll find there is now an ability for everyone to get involved as distributors of the film. And this film has become the largest documentary that's been funded through crowdfunding from the public in history. And it's going to have an amazing amount of information about UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence, contact, and also new energy systems. That really is the reason for the secrecy. And I'm excited today to introduce to the listeners of this show Lee Waterworth, who is the president of YECRA, which is a really innovative company based in Los Angeles that has developed a new media technology so that when an independent film like this comes out, everyone can become a distributor and get become part of it and become empowered through it. And so, Lee, I would like to thank you for being here on the show with me today.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's great to be here, and we're really, really excited to be part of the Sirius release. Right.
Well, you know, it's funny because a few months ago, I guess you were at Sundance at Film Festival, some of your folks, and I was making a presentation, and we didn't get to connect, but we got to meet, I guess, a couple of months ago in Los Angeles, and I was really impressed with what you guys have developed, and I know that many of the listeners were part of the movie and had seen the movie Thrive, and I mean this was a really groundbreaking event for how you were able to create a platform so that anyone with a smartphone or a hook to the internet could view this worldwide and also become a distributor in a sense. What you call an affiliate is the kind of lingo YECRA uses. And I think it's really an interesting concept because it's a brilliant way around the stranglehold that mainstream distribution companies and big media outfits and corporations have had on really conscious films about alternative reality and about controversial subjects that normally are blacklisted and can't make their way out through the mainstream media and distribution networks. So it's a really exciting new media model that is very empowering to the social media and new media paradigms that we're living in today. So I don't know if you could talk to folks a little bit about, you know, what it is, how you developed this and how it works and how people can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be delighted to. You know, it all started with Foster and Kimberly, actually, over at Thrive. I'd worked in the distribution business for about the past 5 years before I met Foster and Kimberly. And I really saw a lot of problems within the industry that were inherent and that seemed as though they weren't about to go away. The first major one is that 95% of all films do not get a distribution deal, which really I thought was a travesty. And then, you know, I worked in a distributor, and I saw how a distribution company works and how they're trying to stay in business. And I worked on a documentary, a feature-length documentary called Fuel, which was about the world's addiction to oil.
Right.
And while there, you know, what was really interesting for me was we spent a ton of money on trying to drive people to theaters. We had, you know, Richard Branson turn out for a press event on Good Morning America. We had Josh on Good Morning America. We had Josh on Larry King. We had full pages in the New York Times. We had TV spots running all over the shop. and we just couldn't break through the noise. We couldn't get people into the theater, and yet we'd spent all of this money, and it was a really awesome film. It was a subject that people really cared about. It was a subject that lit up the internet in terms of conversation and discussion. But trying to get people into a traditional, four-wall theater was really, really difficult, and unfortunately it was a big learning experience for the filmmakers who pushed it out, and it was a real waste because, the people who really wanted to see the movie online couldn't find a way to do it in a timely fashion. And so, and I also worked for a while, just given a brief history in a company called Trans-Pacific Media, which was a international distributors rep. So we repped 13 of the biggest international distributors in the world, and we were buying films like Slumdog Millionaire and Twilight and 3:10 to Yuma. And the big kind of takeaway from that was that it really is an old boys club in terms of, when you get to a certain level, people will only deal with people on that level, and there are reasons for it, and it just unfortunately places a stranglehold, as you said earlier, on projects that might be really great, that can't find a way into the mainstream media, which is, of course, controlled by the same ultimate people anyway. So, the big concern for Foster and Kimbley was applying that knowledge of the traditional industry and combining it with knowledge of the new media, the social media space, and coming up with a distribution solution that allowed them to retain their own rights, to control their own windows, to control their own price points, and that would allow them to actually pivot with the release in the same way that a new technology company would pivot if they find that something's not working. Because traditionally, you sign away your rights to the movie and then it's over to that person to control it. So YECRA, the system that we developed for Thrive, fundamentally from the top down, we do not license rights. We work with producers, we work with filmmakers, but we don't license the rights for them because we realize that, the people that we choose to work with are very passionate about the subject and they need to be able to adapt to the landscape.
And this is really key, if I can interject something here, because the listeners, if you go to our website, SiriusDisclosure.com, and you'll see that we're loading up a lot of evidence, and one of the areas is in the government document domain, and this is actually going to be a little part of the film Sirius that's coming out. And as I mentioned, the premiere is on Earth Day in Los Angeles on April 22nd, and that's the day that everyone in the world can see it video on demand through your system. But one of the things that's in there is a document from the CIA that was from 1991 during the first Bush presidency that described that the CIA had people in every major distribution, news agency, wire service, network, newspaper, magazine, I'm quoting, to alter, change, or stop stories at their whim. And now what's interesting about this document is that it was accidentally declassified. I got it, and then it got reclassified, but we've put it out there. And what people need to understand is that, and this is something I've always struggled with mainstream publicists who don't understand how the world works. Here's chapters 1 through 10 of how the world works. It's corrupt. And this corrupting influence of the intelligence community and the military-industrial complex is profound. And when this document is not a conspiracy theory, it's in black and white, and it's authenticated, and it's there for anyone who knows how to read the King's English to read. Now, the implications of this are profound, and here's one of them. I had a man who is a very big producer and director in the movie business in Hollywood a few years ago, who wanted to do a feature film about all of this and about the story of disclosure. And this is a man who's generated literally billions of dollars in sales over the years. And he flew me out there, and we met, and he had writers who had been on all kinds of big films there. And a couple weeks later, he called me back. He says, they're not going to let me make this film. And he was with one of the major studios, and he had a $60 million discretionary budget to make any film he want, quote unquote. Well, someone came in from corporate and from the intelligence community and killed it. And then a few years later, I was meeting with a man who I don't want to name, but also is a very big director in Hollywood. I mean, huge. And he had some writers there who had done the screenplay for A Born Identity and some of the other big films, and we met for several days in Los Angeles. This is in the last 4 years or so. And he told me a story that he had been working on a project, and what you're describing, Lee, is exactly what happened. Someone bought the film, and after it was not the film he wanted to do with me, but another film. They were $10 million into it already. They bought it, but because it had something in there that one of these special interests, let's call them, did not want out, they black-shelved it and killed it, even though they purchased it for $10 million. And it was just in development. And it never saw the light of day. So when this guy wanted to put together something to make this film that we're doing now, he also got approached by a guy who's a CIA and then a man who had been the head of the Department of Energy. And that deal went up in flames. And then to add one more story, I know these are a bit apocryphal. I'm going through them quickly, but there was a man who was the executive producer of ABC News who had been Mike Wallace's guy at 60 Minutes at CBS prior to that and had won an Emmy. And he wanted to do a big story on disclosure with many of these. We have 110 top-secret military and corporate and intelligence witnesses on videotape, most of which the world has never seen. And he wanted to do a very big special on 2020 and Primetime Live, because at that time he was executive producer at ABC News. And he said, look, I can definitely do this. I control these. I said, I don't think they're going to let you do this, Ira. And he says, oh, yes. Then he came out to the house here, my home in Virginia in the country, out here in the mountains of the Blue Ridge, and we met for an entire day with his team, and I gave him 35 digital hours of interviews and several hundred pages of top-secret documents. And off he went back to New York. 2 weeks later, he calls me up. He says, well, Dr. Greer, they won't let me do this story. I said, Ira, who are they? And he said, Dr. Greer, you know who they are. And that was the last I ever heard. Now, he and I stay in touch. He's back at 60 Minutes now, but at CBS. But these stories are important just so people begin to connect the dots of why we've done this film the way we have. Crowdfunded, it's been done for and by the people. The distribution is going to be for and by the people. And I said this a year ago almost to this day when I was giving a lecture out in Phoenix to about 1,500 people. And I said, we're conceiving of this. We haven't launched it yet. We're going to try to do it. But I turned to everyone in that audience, and I said, I want each of you, we need to figure out a way where each of you will be the distributor of this film. Now, I didn't even know that YECRA existed, and I didn't know a man named Lee Waterworth, and I didn't even know this was possible, but I felt it was. And so I said this. I kind of went out on a limb, and I said, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. And lo and behold, some months later, you and I meet. So here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Wow. Yeah, I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that these things get shelved in terms of patents, and I think that the people just don't even think that it's possible for this kind of stuff to happen in terms of entertainment, right? Because it's the TV. Who's going to stop stuff coming through the TV? But what they don't really realize yet, and obviously a lot of people do, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this radio show particularly understand this, is that it's just the public version of events.
Sure.
And it's filling people's heads full of drivel. It's reality TV shows, watching people go out and drink and party, and that's taking up people's time, turning them into zombies, and actually drawing their attention away from the stuff that really matters and that's really going to change their lives and that they're really going to want to talk about and they're really going to get involved with.
Right, and now what the beauty of the difference between now and 12 years ago when we had the Disclosure Project event at the National Press Club, which was picked up briefly by all the world's media, and then it was ordered down by these corrupting influences, is that, and then of course 9/11 happened 4 months later, but I think that, and that's another discussion that I don't want to go into right now, but the point is this is now a different era because we didn't have video on demand. We didn't have smartphones and iPads, and the Internet developed to where people can click a button and view a film like this and hook it up into their den and their home, and have some friends over and see it. So this stranglehold that the media has had is no more. I mean, even Newsweek isn't printed anymore and has had to go online. So I think that this is really exciting as a new model for the new media that you guys have, and I just think it's amazing. But I don't know if you want to go a little bit into kind of how people who are on this, who are listening today, can sign up to become an affiliate and distributor. I think it's a really amazing system you have.
Absolutely, I'd be delighted to inform people. The general way it works is people would need to come to your website, SiriusDisclosure.com/new energy, if they want the direct URL. If not, they can go to SiriusDisclosure.com and click underneath the trailer, click on the link that says click here to become an affiliate. That will then take them through to a page that allows them to sign themselves up. So what does signing themselves up mean, and what does an affiliate mean? Well, essentially, what we've really recognized is that people have spent a lot of time online building communities around a certain topic. So, for example, going back to Thrive, they've built up a community that's around some topics that cross over with Sirius, and other topics like global domination, and there's other conspiracy theories, big pharma conspiracy, all that kind of stuff as well. They've built an active community where people can feel safe and where people want to talk about that subject. Now, a perfect affiliate for Sirius, therefore, would be Thrive, because Sirius touches on, free energy, it touches on ETs, it touches on UFOs, and all of that stuff has already been talked about in Thrive, and they've got a community there of hundreds of thousands of people. So what they can now do is they can become an affiliate, and they can actually distribute Sirius directly to their audience that we already know cares about the product and cares about the message within the product. And that serves then as for the filmmaker, and for you, it serves as a catalyst to get the message out quickly. It helps Thrive raise money at the same time for their own organization, to keep them in business, to keep them moving forward, to keep the movement going. And it actually, for the end consumer, it works in a way that allows them to shop locally, so they can support the causes that they want to support, they can support the communities that they want to support, but also they can get informed quicker, because they're already going to these places looking for information on these topics and on these subjects. And so we are basically, it's like direct marketing. We're finding the people online who may have a Facebook group, a Twitter page, a YouTube channel, a website, an email mailing list. I mean, any online community that they've been building, and they haven't been really able to monetize in this way. Now they can become a distributor, and they can release a movie directly to their community before people get it on iTunes, Amazon, and Netflix.
Exactly.
It gives them a great incentive.
Well, and that means that, let's say that you have however many thousand people in your network, if you're part of an environmental club or some other group. Each person who views this film, your organization would get $1. And so this is something where all these millions of people who are interested in the environment, new energy, UFOs, all their organizations can benefit. And then what comes to us is going to go into this new energy research lab. And this has been the thing that we've been trying to do for a number of years. We've never been able to raise, more than a few $100,000, and you obviously can't staff and outfit a high energy physics lab for that. So what we're trying to do is reach our minimum goal of somewhere around $6 to $8 million in that range, so that we can open up a lab where people who are the geniuses we've met over the last 20 years in my research into these classified programs can begin to build up these new energy generation systems that would get us off fossil fuels and what have you. And the reason this is so connected to UFOs, which of course is the thing that most people have never connected these dots properly, is that the energy and propulsion systems that are behind how a UFO is moving across the sky at enormous speeds and making right-hand turns and has no fuel tanks, etc., is that they're pulling energy out of this so-called zero-point energy field or quantum vacuum of space. And these sort of high-voltage electromagnetic generation systems have existed since the time of Tesla and before. They keep getting suppressed. So what we want to do with this film, Sirius, is for that to be sort of the grain of sand that makes the pearl, as it were, that builds around this whole concept. And so the net revenues that we'll get will go into this effort to create a serious, pun intended, new energy research project that is properly staffed and funded, and that the public will be vested in, because they'll say, this is what I've been supporting. And so it's a win-win situation. So if you're part of a community that would benefit from your people knowing this information, you would get some revenue from each person who viewed the film, but then the excess the net that we will end up getting for this will go into this new energy research laboratory, which is essential because, the equipment that is needed for these very high voltage experimental systems is in the neighborhood of around $500,000 just for the Kawasaki analyzers and the very high voltage. I won't go into all the gory detail, but you cannot do this kind of research just without any serious staffing with physicists and electrical engineers and people who know materials management, very specialized materials such as barium titanate and nanocrystalline materials that can be used that are solid state. These are all things that we know about, and I have literally several 100,000 pages of information on this, including patents that have been, I won't say how I got them, that have information about this on them. And as people know from our website, there's 5,135 patents that have been seized dealing with this issue that the national security state has criminally and illegally seized without the knowledge of the Congress or President. These are the bureaucrats who just suck up all this information like a Hoover vacuum cleaner and put it into the black pit of Calcutta. And so the problem is that we have to figure out how to bring some of this out, at least the first generations of these energy generation systems. And it isn't going to be done with a few $1,000s. You need, in fact, most of the people who are in the high-tech world, when I tell them how modest our budget is for this, a serious physics and an electromagnetic research facility, kind of laugh. They say, you need 10 times that amount. I say, yes, we do need 10 times that amount, but right now we'd be happy to get to this first stage so that in a year or two we could come out with the first generation proof of principle prototype of this, because until we get to that point, and it needs to be done in a way where the whole world is watching, to use a phrase from the 60s, because one of the big mistakes that all these new energy inventors have done, and I've gotten caught in this over the last few years, is that they want to do it secretively. They get to a certain point, then they get a knock on the door, and then they get scared off and they're shut down. So what I did with Disclosure Project, Lee, was to pull together 110 top-secret guys and got 20-some of them at the National Press Club, and they all came out together. Well, we need to do the same thing on this new energy thing, because the divide and conquer strategy is our enemy. Secrecy is our enemy. So we need to do this above board, transparently, in a unified way, in such a fashion that it can't be just divided up. And my view of this lab is that as things get developed, it's literally live streamed in real time, that it's virtually open source, so that you don't have this whole process being done the way they do things for the next iPhone, where it's very secretively and you have your head cut off if you leave it at a bar, like this poor guy did recently for the Apple Corporation, where you're basically in a huge amount of trouble if you disclose it. What I think we need to do is develop these technologies in a way that the whole public knows they're being developed, has supported the funding of it, and is doing it in such a way that if any part of the national security state were to step in and threaten or shut it down, they would be caught in a bright spotlight that would say, here are what these goons and thugs and bullies are trying to do. And you know what? They won't do it, because here we are almost 12 years out since the National Press Club launching of the whole Disclosure Project movement. Not a single one of our military guys, and almost all of them had signed top secret security oaths. Not one of them has ever gotten a phone call threatening them, because there are too many millions of people who found out about it. And now there are some 17 countries around the world that have opened up their files, from France to Denmark to Chile to Brazil. So what you find is that the Disclosure Project movement created this much force. Now we need to bring out through this film Sirius this information that ties all this together and connects the dots. And then the funding for these video-on-demand revenue that we're trying to encourage people to sign up for, your organization or list can benefit. But then the benefit we'll get is that we'll have the revenue to do this properly in a protected and secure way with the best minds that we've been able to identify over the last 20 years who do understand this physics and do understand the science behind zero-point energy and electrogravitics and new energy.
I really applaud that strategy. I think it's great, and I think it's what everybody needs. And I also think it's awesome that you've chosen Earth Day as the release for the movie, April 22nd, because what better gift could we give to Mother Earth than the gift of free energy right now? And becoming an affiliate will mean that people will be able to spread the word about a cause that they support. They'll be able to raise money at the same time for the free energy lab that will be kept in plain sight, and it's going to change everyone's lives. And they'll have a choice whether to share in the financial success of the film or donate their affiliate commissions directly back to the building of that free energy lab, so that we can get it up there and build it quicker.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, everyone listening, you can choose to either have your affiliate 10% go to the new energy lab or to your own project, and it's fine either way. But you'll be asked to make that choice, and you can make that choice in either direction. Our main thing is twofold: is to get the information out to the maximum number of people, but also to be able to generate the visibility and the funding support to do this work and carry it forward. Because one of the things that I've found very sad over the last 10 or 15 years of my exploration on this are the number of really wonderful, brilliant people who have developed these systems, but they've run into the buzzsaw, and they've been these lonely figures, that whether they're at Lawrence Berkeley Labs, where there's a man I know who developed an over-unity crystalline structure that gave 10 times more energy out that came in, and a bunch of goons came in and abducted him and put him into a mental hospital and put him on a Thorazine drip. This is a true story, and confiscated all his information, to the man that 3 years ago we had under contract who was trying to do this for us, who has done a lot of work for the intelligence community and thought he had permission to help develop one of these devices, and a former CIA director and a bunch of goons who have been stalking and threatening my life for a decade showed up down there where he there in Alabama, where his lab was, and basically threatened him and did all kinds of terrifying things. This was exactly 3 years ago, not ancient history. And he was so scared off that even though we had provided grant funding to him to develop this, he just couldn't do it by himself in his workshop as an independent agent. And so we've tried everything we can to do it in a small way with nominal funding. It doesn't work because you're up against a $600 trillion behemoth that will stop at nothing to get their way and maintain their hegemony and the oligarch status they have, bestriding the planet where all of us are basically slaves on this plantation they've created of their macroeconomic petrofascist system. And so somebody at some point has to figure out a way. Now, I have to say, what I'm trying to bring to this current effort are a lot of terrible lessons in the School of Hard Knocks, and frankly, more than a few mistakes that I've made over the last few years, and I'll admit to those, because I was trying to do the best I can with what we had, but it was always not enough, and it's a shame. When you hear about $100 million going into the next alien invasion film, and we're here, trying to look for a few crumbs to do something of this magnitude. But, we have to, this is why we're turning to the public and saying, help us do this, because look at what happened with that, I forget the name of the film, but there was about the Congo warlord, and they came out with this movie, and there was a group of young folks who raised, tens of millions of dollars from a video they did about that. I don't see why with the social media and the viral networking and the model that Lee, you've developed with YECRA, that we can't generate the support that we need have and deserve to have to create these systems to lift the burden we have placed upon the earth. I can tell you that one of the biggest things that keeps me in the game today is that I was not raised a religious person, but my spiritual awakening was very much with nature and Gaia, and I sort of found spirit through nature. And I guess it harkens to my Native American. My grandmother was Cherokee. And I have this profound love for nature and the earth and the beauty of it, and I see what we're doing to the earth, and I know it's unnecessary. So we have to find the compassion and the perseverance to make it through this so that people don't think that the solutions to our energy problems is another Keystone pipeline or another, which of course just this week has spilled all this muck into this town in Arkansas. It's all breaking news. And so, can't we do better than this? Well, we're not going to do better than this from the government and the Department of Energy and the large corporations. And I think the only way we're going to get to this next phase in our civilization is to take it to the people. So here we have a film that's been funded by and for the people, and now it's going to be distributed by and for the people. And I think that's as it should be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's the most effective way of raising awareness. And it also really helps the people out there that really want to see some movement on the free energy side. So I've spent a long time working with Thrive, and I'm already seeing it with Sirius. There aren't just goons and trolls in the real world. There are goons and trolls in cyberspace too. Okay. So you see a ton of people already coming out there saying, you're charging for this movie, that's ridiculous. Well, hang on a minute. We're charging for the movie because we actually want to create a free energy lab that is in plain sight. And the sooner we can do that, and the sooner we raise money to do that, the sooner we can change things around on this planet. So in terms of the affiliates, it's a real drive in terms of a call to action. The sooner we can get this out there, the more people that become affiliates for the movie, the quicker we'll actually wake people up. Because a lot of people in Middle America don't know about this yet, but we need to make sure that they're aware of it. We need to achieve that critical mass, and that's exactly what Coney did, which was the video you referenced about the warlord.
Yes.
That's what they did, but they did it in a different way, and it was promoted, and I've heard a lot of theories on that, and I have my own theory on that, because when you look at the bill that passed through the House a couple of days later, it also just, of course, in absolute glory and glee, because everybody on Facebook and online was supporting it, the bill actually contained something that allowed U.S. soldiers to cross the borders of any neighboring country. And I was thinking to myself, scratching my head, why is that? What's the reason there?
Right.
A couple of weeks later, I'm sat at a friend's house, with a Time magazine in front of me that just happens to be open on a page that shows all of the countries of Africa. And it's actually a depiction of the biggest kind of gold mining countries within South Africa. Right. It just so happens that country shared borders with the biggest gold mining countries in Africa. So again, it brings us back down to gold, power, right, control, military complex.
Oh yes,
it's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it is, and this is there's always a backstory to these things, and most people don't realize that in the last couple of years, almost $2 billion with a B dollars have been spent on appalling Hollywood flicks like Battle Los Angeles and other things, right, that attempt to portray the ET presence in the most negative way possible. But this is all part of the propaganda that's been unleashed that, of course, Dr. Carol Rosin warned us about, that Werner von Braun, who invented the V-2 rocket for Adolf Hitler, on his deathbed said, look, first we're going to have the Cold War, then we're going to have global terrorism, then we're going to have things from outer space like asteroids that are a risk that we'll have to put weapons in space for. But the trump card we're ultimately going to play is that we're going to hoax an alien invasion. And so how far we've gone from the time of Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind and the movie E.T. to now there's this rubbish that comes out every few months, a new video game or movie that portrays the whole E.T. issue in the most appalling, defaming, xenophobic light possible. And I think that what we're trying to do, as well as bring out the new energy information, is to expose that agenda and say there's another way here. And the other way, and since we're talking on the World Puja Network, where everybody understands meditation and cosmic awareness, is that we have to create a new consciousness based in higher cosmic awareness of what our place in the universe is, that we're going to go out in the universe peacefully. We're not going to go out there with guns blazing in some sort of Armageddon scenario fighting aliens. I mean, as enthralled as people are to that fantasy, the reality of it is something quite different. And the reality is that this is something that would redound to the benefit of the military-industrial complex, which, through their lackeys, are funding all these appalling movies in Hollywood. So we're admittedly the underdog in a very small voice, but I think that when people see Sirius, this film, they're going to realize that they've all been in a Truman Show. They've all been sort of in an Orwellian motion picture where they had been spoon-fed rubbish that they have taken hook, line, and sinker, and that the reality is something very beautiful, and that is we are being visited by intelligent civilizations that are quite peaceful, that they're concerned not with invading us, but they're concerned with us destroying ourselves or them, and that we have become, humans, an existential threat to ourselves and perhaps to others. When you connect the dots, and this is actually going to be in the film, that Ben Rich, the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works, before he died, stated that we already have the means to take E.T. home, that we already have technologies that are interstellar capable, and that we're going out in space. If you combine that statement with the fact that we're going out in space with weapon systems, and that we have thousands of nuclear weapons aimed at each other, even still, that why wouldn't the ETs be concerned about us? So I always tell people, people have these fantasies of marauding aliens, and I say, well, actually, I think the bigger concern is marauding humans, because in the last century we have murdered 200 million of our own people in warfare, and we continue to do so. And so we have to find a new consciousness of going forward that is based on justice and enlightenment and a peaceful world, and also peace in space. And that's really the meta theme of this film, Sirius. And by the way, one of the things I want to encourage people to do is to hold a Sirius premiere parties the night of Earth Day, the 22nd of April, because that's when everyone who's signing up now can view the video on demand, and you can have a party, and you can have a virtual party with people you know. So if you can't be at the premiere, and I do apologize, the premiere theater is sold out and has been for some time, although we are going to have a second theater at LA Live that will be open. We've just signed the contract for that, so that even though you can't be in the main theater where I will be and where Thomas Jane and other folks will be, you will be able to be in the same complex with the red carpet and all the excitement of premiere night. We have just engaged a second theater that's an overflow theater. So you can find out about that also at SiriusDisclosure.com if you want to be in the LA area for April 22nd. But if you can't be there in person, because I'm sure that theater will fill up as well, you can do this wherever you are. If you're in Russia, I know we have people listening from Malaysia, from Australia, from all over the world. You can have a Sirius premiere party and viewing right there in your own home and in your own town, because this film will be on video on demand beginning that night at the same time that we will all be seeing it for the first time together at the Los Angeles premiere. So it's very exciting. So I'd like to encourage people to begin organizing now for these premiere parties on April 22nd.
Yeah, I think that's a really great thing, because one of the one of the major issues about films on subjects like this is they're traditionally thought of as taboo. And people are really not concerned about people they don't know, but they are concerned about the brother or the best friend and what they think of them. So the idea of getting a group of people together who you're close to, who you're friendly with, to watch the movie and open up the conversation is a really good idea. It's also a really powerful idea because there's power in numbers. And so you get your people together. You can watch it online at SiriusDisclosure.com as of April the 22nd through our system. If you want to check that works, that all your computers up to date, make sure you do that beforehand. You can contact our customer service team through our website, yekra.com. Get your party together, and then think about the actions that you want the people in the room to actually take. They can sign up as an affiliate there and then, immediately after the film. They can tweet it out. They can Facebook it out. The power is in our hands here. We are the underdog, but the power is in our hands because we've got social media, because we've got a good strategy for spreading the word, and because we're actually looking to do something really, really great with the net proceeds of the film. That's really going to benefit everybody. So it's a win-win, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to come together, to get the conversation started, and to push it out into the wide stream, and to do what Coney did. Make sure you tweet about it on that day. Make sure you Facebook about it, even if you're not an affiliate. If you are an affiliate, you can do that and earn money from it as well. And everything goes back to this energy lab and us changing the power dynamic as quickly as we possibly can do.
Well, and see, we're going to be doing this for months. So, this video-on-demand system is not just a one-day event. I don't want people to get the idea that it's only for premiere night. It's going to be going on for months. And so you can keep moving this virally through your social media, Facebook page, Twitter, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not very techie. People who know me, but I believe that when you become an affiliate, you can even put a link in your Twitter feed or on your Facebook page where people can hit it and they can go right to the player that would be associated with your affiliate distributor status. Is that correct?
Sure. Let me just run through what each affiliate will get and how they can quickly use it. They'd get a link developed that's unique to them. So wherever they post that link, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's through Twitter, whether it's to use it to hyperlink text or to hyperlink some key art of the movie, and to send that via email, they can use that link. Wherever that link goes, we track it. So if all of their friends reshare it, retweet it, and it ends up in Japan from America and somebody makes a purchase from Japan, we're tracking that. And they can log in, and it's all completely transparent and empowering. So they can see where the statistics are, how much money they've made off this, or how much money they've donated back to the Free Energy Lab, and the creation of it, and the spreading the word and doing good at the same time. The other thing that we do is we create a player, an embed code for a player that it can be unique to an individual affiliate. So, of course, if somebody has a website or a blog, they can take that player, they can write a nice article, send that information out to their constituents, if you like, to their community, and actually include the movie right there. So you're talking about it and watch it right here. They can pull it out onto full screen from any connected device, whether that's a home theater system or an iPad or an Android device or a laptop or a desktop, and anybody can watch it at any time, a mobile device as well. So we've got those two things, and then the third thing that we have is an embeddable player, but it comes up in a light box when an advert is clicked. So for those people that don't have the time necessarily to write up too much about the film, but they do want to push it out to their network and they do want to have it on their website, they can just take one of these ad banners that we create, they can pop it into place, and then when a user clicks on that, it will bring up the player right there and then within the website. So there's three very distinct options that they can have.
Oh, I'm so glad you're doing this. This is so far over I'm just a country doctor here in Virginia, and this is so far beyond my pay grade, but I'm glad folks like you know what they're doing, because I have to say there's this amazing team that's come together. We have a man, Gregory Markell, who's who's with a internet marketing firm who's donating his time, but he's done very large films like The Hobbit and many other big films, Django Unchained and what have you. And we just have this amazing group of people from all over the world who are helping us organize and network this event and the rollout of this. And our view of it is now many people are asking us, are we going to have other big screenings? And I just want to tell people, yes, we are. We just booked this week the 1,000-seat Paramount Theater in Charlottesville, Virginia, here near the University of Virginia, and that will be on the 12-year anniversary of the Disclosure Project National Press Club event, May 9th of this year, 2013. And so we're going to have the Virginia premiere here. We hope to also have a screening and premiere in Washington the week of the mock congressional briefings that are going to be at the National Press Club the week of the April 29th, although we're still looking for a suitable venue there. If anyone knows of one, let us know. We haven't been able to find a suitable theater that's large enough to hold the crowd we would have there. And we're planning one in London in July and in Las Vegas in July. And we're also looking at Denver in June and very likely at a film festival in Albuquerque in June. And so these are all pending, so you just stay tuned if you're in any of these regions of the world. And we're going to hopefully be able, now of course, we're a bit stretched right now with our staff and volunteers to get this premiere rollout on the 22nd, to be honest with everyone. But we do hope that we'll have a system set up where people can help facilitate more screenings in their cities. And we are talking to some regular distributors about doing some limited showings in some major cities around the world on the big screen as well. But those are all things that are in the discussion phase. Right now, what we know we can do is reach everyone who has an internet connection, and they can view it, whether it's on a smartphone or an iPad or a tablet or their computer or their TV at home that's hooked to the internet, that you'll be able to see this film and have a party, have a Sirius party. If not the night of the premiere, I know it'll be 8 o'clock Pacific time, which is already pretty late on the East Coast and in Europe, but, in Australia it'd be all right. But we're going to, do this launch on the 22nd, but it's going to be a continuing movement to bring this film and the information that's in the film and our strategy to involve the public in creating a new free energy movement that is seriously supported and properly funded and properly staffed. Because I think that anything less than that won't work, because we've tried it, and the Earth deserves it. And I do love the fact that it worked out almost serendipitously that the date that the LA Live Premiere House Theater was available was Earth Day. Believe it or not, that was the only day that we could get this massive premiere theater that's down in Los Angeles at LA Live. And it turned out, I looked at the calendar, I went, well, it's perfect. It's Earth Day. Why not? So when I saw that, I said, well, this is a sign that this is really when we need to move this forward, because ultimately what we're doing is about the Earth and humanity and our future together in space with these visitors from other worlds. And I think that this is very appropriate, that it'll be our way of celebrating Earth Day, is that we're dedicating this effort and this movement and these proceeds to bring out the long-suppressed technologies that literally could give us a new civilization that without pollution and without poverty, and that this is the time to do it. And if we're not going to do it now, what are we waiting for? And I think the longer we wait, the more we're going to see catastrophes, both geophysical and geopolitical, because you cannot have peace in the world where there's no justice, and you cannot have justice where half the world's population is living in poverty because of the zero-sum game of the macroeconomic petrodollar system. And so for that to change, we're going to have enough courage and enough foresight and skill to come together as a people and support that change. And that's really what this film is about.
Yeah, and one of the things you just touched on there is spreading the word. And one thing I know certainly to be true is the Brits are a hard sell on this kind of stuff. So that also really plays into how important the affiliate system is and how important it is to share it with friends, not only in the U.S. but also internationally, to really start waking up the international communities too.
Well, I have to say, in defense of your fellow, I've always been received very well in Britain, and I've been on the BBC, and I've been at the Sunday Times, did a wonderful article about our work some years ago, and
they're all cynical though.
Every time I've done a presentation in the United Kingdom, we've had a packed house and enthusiastic, wonderful people. The other place where there's such enormous support for what we're doing, and this surprises people, is in Russia and also China and Australia. We have an enormous number of people who are very supportive. I wish I could get to Australia to do a premiere in Sydney, but I need a UFO to take me there in 5 minutes because it's such a trip from the east coast of America. But someday I hope to get there. But there are people all over the world, and one of the things I want to point out is that around 4,000 people have contributed to this film. And many of you are listening now at the World Puja, and I want to thank each of you because we would not be able to have done this without the amazing support that's come from the public to get us this far. 100% of these funds have come from folks just like you listening, and we do appreciate it. And I have to say that those of you who contributed, I think it's $11 or more to the crowdfunding of the film, will get a video, one of these video on demand views that you'll be able to see on premiere night as well. And Lee is setting that up, and you'll be notified soon of how you can get that view and have your own little premiere party if you cannot be at the premiere. And right now, we expect around 1,100 people at this premiere at both theaters, so it's going to be quite a large event to manage. And but we hope to have hundreds of times that number around the world watching with us on Earth Day on April 22nd.
Yeah, it's going to be quite an event. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And just for purposes of clarification, for anybody out there who's listening and interpreting VOD as just being a set-top box, the movie will be available from SiriusDisclosure.com. So you've got to go to SiriusDisclosure.com to access the player to be able to rent the film.
Right. And also, we will have it also coming out in DVD as well. And so people will be able to get it that way. And we hope within a month or so of the VOD launch. And as I said, there will be a limited theatrical release in a number of cities, and there may be a larger theatrical release depending on what we can arrange. One of the things we haven't wanted to do is to, as Lee mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, was to give up the control of the film to large corporate distribution entities because of the very high risk that they could acquire it and then kill it. And I know people may think I'm a bit cautious. Some would say paranoid, but you're not paranoid if people really are out to get you. And in this sense, we know that there are folks who would like to stop this message, and so we have to be abundantly cautious. And I think the way we can do that the best is to put it back in the hands of all of you listeners and all the people out there, because then you can run from heart to heart and mind to mind with this information, and that's how we get around the traditional stranglehold of the media. And I have to say, a few years ago I was on a show. It was before one of the presidential elections, and I'm not going to give too much detail on this because it would be not helpful, but I'll just say I was on a radio show. There were around 14 million people listening, and the person interviewing me began to ask about certain people who were involved in this so-called Majestic group that's kept this secret. And I started naming some of the people, one of which is a prominent politician that is known, and they went to an unscheduled commercial break, and a voice broke in from a satellite system and said, "Dr. Greer, change the direction of this conversation now, or we are going to dump this show live. This is with 14 million people listening, the fourth largest radio show in the world at the time. Now, global. And I said, look, I'm not carrying water for you guys. If you don't want me to answer the question, don't have the interviewer ask it. Now, it turned out the interviewer had no idea who that voice was, but they would have jammed that satellite, and there would have been a dead space, and they would have then put in an old show of mine or an old show of someone else's. So this sort of thing really does happen, and it is not a conspiracy theory. It's just a fact that there are folks who do not want it known that we're not alone in the universe, that we figured out how these UFOs operate, that we could start a whole new civilization free of the petrodollar and pollution and the current macroeconomic system, and we could go forward in a way that would truly democratize the world and be a tide that would lift all ships. But in doing so, the concentrated wealth and power that's in the death grip of 200 or 300 individuals and corporations would slip through their fingers. And so those interests will do this. And this is something that when it happened was so amazing to me and so brazen. But it was just before a presidential election, and I think with that many people listening, they were concerned that if I had stayed on that thread, it could have moved the election. And I don't want to go into it any more than that, except to say that this is why all of you listening right now need to understand your involvement in this and seeing that this message and this vision goes forward. It's really in your hands, and that's where it should be.
Yeah. And it really, they can do it through a system that democratizes distribution, which is also really, really great. I'm really looking forward to the release. I think that all of the listeners out there are really going to get behind it, and I think that it's a message that's going to spread quickly. I think it's going to wake people up. I think it's really critical to the survival of our planet. And I'm really excited to be part of it.
Well, thank you, Lee. I'm really, it's amazing to me that a year ago I sort of spoke to an audience and said, I want this to be set up so that everyone in this room, the 1,500 people in this room, yet you can all become distributors, and everyone you know can be a distributor. And I had no idea that technology like yours even existed. And so
yeah.
It was like, the universe served it up and because it needed. And so, it's thank you very much and your team for your amazing creativity and ingenious ability to make this happen, because I think it's a big part of solving this problem.
It's our pleasure, really.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I'd like to thank you for being with me on the show today, Lee. And again, go to SiriusDisclosure.com, SIRIUS Disclosure.com. And also just a note, if those of you who want to join me for a week under the stars in Crestone, Colorado, in June, I will be there with a team training people in higher consciousness and remote viewing and our contact protocols. And you can find out about that also at SiriusDisclosure.com. And also we'll be taking a team to the crop circles and to the sacred places in England in July. And so those of you who want to join us on that expedition, there's information there as well. So until next time, thank you at the World Puja Network for hosting us. And until then, keep looking up, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.